think it's already quite proven, right? That returns and impact are not compromising each other, but actually they're enhancing each other. Not only at the same time, but actually elevating it. So if you see an impact startup, it's very common that they are more resilient to changes because they are solving a problem that is very clear in the market. And at the same time, they are great at, for instance, retaining talent and attracting talent. How sexy is it to tell someone, hey, come work with me because I'm solving a problem that is going to help everyone on Earth. Norrsken does three things very good, right? We give capital to impact entrepreneurs, we provide them with a community, and then we lend them the spotlight that we try to create. And I think in that last one is where we can try and help more. And in the events that we do and in the conversations that we have, try and pose those questions and give the spotlight to those solutions. And that's how we try and do it.
What if venture capital didn't just chase returns, but also addressed food insecurity, climate change, and recyclable materials? Joan Jofra is the director at Norrsken Impact Week, one of Europe's most ambitious purpose-driven hubs, backing early-stage startups that tackle real-world challenges at scale. Norrsken uncovers what it really takes to found businesses serving people, planet, and profit at the same time. Welcome to Reinventing Capitalism, the podcast where I, Claudia Thomas, decode the success of for-profit impact businesses through the stories of their founders. Our goal is to inspire you towards a purpose-driven career, because life's too short for boring jobs and soul-crushing corporations. Quick note before we get back to the episode. Just give me 30 seconds of your time. Two things. The first is a huge thank you for listening and tuning into the show week after week. It means the world to me. And the second is that we are just getting started. If you enjoy what we do here, please join the 14% of people that listen to this podcast regularly and follow us on this app. I promise to do everything in my power to make this show as good as I can, now and into the future. Thank you. Joan, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Claudia, for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
You have worked for some of the biggest VCs and startup ecosystems. Like, for example, 4 years from now, then Seaya, and now Norrsken. What inspires you from the startup ecosystem?
First, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. Also worked with the Tech Barbecue team in Copenhagen. If I forget them, they'll be very mad. I think from the startup ecosystem, what is most inspiring is you see people who are very passionate about solving problems and who don't hesitate to disregard the option of having a more comfortable work with bigger pay, with more stability, with more likely than not with fewer work hours for the sake of doing what they're passionate about. But at the same time, what I love most about the ecosystem is how it's very collaborative. So it's all of these people that are very, very passionate about what they do, but they are not competitive, or they are, of course, because we live in a competitive environment and it's inherently so. But at the same time, people are very happy and very eager to share what their problems are, what is the solutions they've found. So when I was at Seaya, for instance, we were building the platform and the portfolio support structure, and I had never done it before, and neither had anyone at the team at Seaya, and that was common for most of the VCs all over Europe and even the world. This is something that started maybe 15 years ago in the States and only for the last 10 in Europe. When I started, I think it was 2 or 3 of us in Spain, and we met up quite often to discuss what were our problems, what were our solutions that we were facing, what is it that we didn't manage to solve. And I'm confident that I didn't solve almost anything there, but at the same time laid the ground and the foundation for what is going to be the next part of it. And that's what I love about the startup ecosystem, how people are very, very commonly sharing what they do because they know that it elevates everyone, and then people are comfortable in being the best at what they do, right? So it's a little bit of, I'm not worried about sharing what we're our practices and our best efforts, because I know I'll beat you in a fair game. Yeah. So I think that's what I really love.
That's actually something that you told me the first time we met, and I never forget about it, because it's true. Unless you are competing directly in the same industry and maybe selling the same product or service, people are actually really willing to help each other and like increase the level of whatever they are doing. Yeah.
Yep, I think unless you're a direct competitor, as you're saying, but even so, look at VCs, for instance. Most VCs are obviously fighting for the same deals. Yeah. The hot startups, we all know them, right? So everyone wants to be in on that deal. Yeah. And at the same time, there's very high collaboration, and most VCs have coffees, beers, lunches, meetings with each other on a regular basis to discuss where they are, what are their pains, what is the things that they have found that work best in this industry. And that, of course, is self-serving because you are learning from everyone else around you, but then everyone else is also learning. So I think even in some competitive ones, of course, if it's two startups that are fighting in the same market segment, it's actually illegal if they are sharing it, right? But I think even in competitive environments, people do share best practices, and I love that.
Purpose is one thing, and building a company around it is another one. And at Norrsken, you aim to invest in companies that do both. It seems like it's a tricky balance in general. What's the hardest part about supporting impact startups versus traditional tech startups?
Yes, it is hard, and at the same time it isn't, right? So we at Norrsken, there's the funds, of course, that invest in impact founders, and then there's the foundation as a whole that supports in many different ways, mostly forming communities around them. And what we've seen is that sometimes not only isn't it easier, it's not harder, but it's easier, right? So mostly for two reasons. One is that within impact, of course, if we specialize, it makes it easier for us to know what are the problems they have versus if we were complete generalists, even though impact is a generalist term in itself, right? So you can fit many things within it. But yes, that for us is already quite an advantage, knowing exactly what are the pains that most of our startups or the startups within our ecosystem have. And then secondly, I think it's already quite proven, right, that returns and impact not only are not compromising each other, but actually they're enhancing each other.
They can go hand in hand.
Not only exactly, 100% hand in hand, and not only at the same time, but actually elevating it. So if you see an impact startup, it's very common that they are more resilient to changes because they are solving a problem that is very clear in the market, and at the same time they are great at, for instance, retaining talent and attracting talent. How sexy is it to tell someone, hey, come work with me because I'm solving a problem that is going to help everyone on Earth, right? Or at least a big chunk of people. and yes, of course, we're only trying. And entrepreneurs have very similar problems all over. So I would say the problems that impact entrepreneurs have are often similar to the ones that
traditional tech.
Yes, generalist entrepreneurs also have.
Remind me, which are the verticals that you guys invest in from Norrsken?
More than in the investment side, from the community side, let's say, we look at mostly three, which are climate, social impact, and then health. We, of course, see more and more of the climate one because of how pressing the problem is. And I personally lean more towards that, right? You obviously always have a favorite and the one, and the one that comes more natural to you. But yeah, those three, let's say, are the big overarching blocks that we're looking at.
Okay. At Norrsken, you say that purpose needs to become infrastructure. I think you mean that it needs to become systemic. What does that mean at a business level? Like, how can the audience understand what that really means?
That actually is one of the things that impact founders have different compared to normal founders, is that more often than not, they find the best solution. And it is something that is actually, it should be a no-brainer to adopt, but they need to convince the whole industry and the incumbents of that industry that is the best practice. I think that is the most challenging one. However, if you find a problem that needs a solution and find a solution that is better and cheaper, that normally falls within its own weight. And at the same time, very commonly, you convince everyone that that's the right solution. But that's also tough. I mean, I forgot their name now, but they do sustainable cement, right? You know, cement is one of the biggest emitters in the world. I think it accounts for 5% of the global emissions, and they found a solution to cement that is not only not CO2 emittent, but actually it captures CO2. However,
that's incredible. It's almost unbelievable.
They did very elegant chemistry, and I'm very sorry that I don't remember their name. I can look for it later. But they found a very elegant chemical solution that captures cement instead of emitting cement. And instead of doing it from limestone, they are extracting it from a different stone, and that's what makes it better. But even them know that even though their solution is equally as for structural purposes is just as good or better than cement, and it of course captures carbon, but they know that this is an industry that is very hard to transform, right? It's very, very slow. And if you were to build a 10-story building, would you do it with the solution that has been working for the past 100 years, or would you try something new? right? And of course, that's what is harder with impact entrepreneurs.
And how would you say that you can change this? So, for example, convince construction companies to use this alternative cement if it wasn't necessarily cheaper? Like how that's what I'm thinking about when I say systemic. Like this just came to mind. Like how, like how at Norrsken would you convince or try to change mindsets?
I think we at Norrsken have a small part to play there, fairly small to be very realistic. We can only use, Norrsken does three things very good, right? We give capital to impact entrepreneurs, we provide them with a community, and then we lend them the spotlight that we try to create. And I think in that last one is where we can try and help more. And in the events that we do and in the conversations that we have, try and pose those questions and give the spotlight to those solutions. And that's how we try and do it. And we have many ways in which we do so. But I think it's not only us, it's a regulation matter, right? So I think we live in a capitalist society, and this is going to be the case for a very long time, even though we reinvent it. And for that to work, the solution should be just as expensive or cheaper. And if it's not the case, then regulation needs to come in place that says, okay, this solution is cheaper in the long run, right? Because when we say cheaper or more expensive, sometimes we're talking about the short run and what is the case for the direct counterpart, but rather than what is the actual impact on the planet. Are we going to have to spend more afterwards in solving that problem? And then if that is going to be the case, then that's where regulators can come in and say, let's solve it from scratch and kill the problem.
That's a very systemic change, or something that I think in the industry are trying to teach, which is, let's not focus only on the short-term benefits, but rather let's invest now in whatever it is, so that in the future we can actually, the return on investment can be higher.
Yes, and this is something that has been done for a very long time, but at the same time, we're creating this path as we do, right? And we don't have all the answers, and we need to be honest about that. And I think it's good that we keep challenging ourselves in finding those answers.
Yeah. What founder behavior makes you bet on someone immediately?
I think it's when someone is more in love with the problem they are solving than with the solution they have found. So what I love is talking to founders who have found not only a glitch in the system or a spot in the market that they can exploit, which is also very respectable and not only respectable, it's amazing that people, the length at which people go to make that their purpose and do something impactful out of there. But rather someone that has found a real problem and is trying to solve it in the best way possible. And why is that exciting to me more than people that face on the solution? Is more often than not because those founders, as we were saying before, right? We don't have all the answers. And when they find out that their solution wasn't perfect, they will find another solution, because what they want to do is solve that problem. Yeah. And that's what where you see someone that is going to succeed is because they know they don't marry any solution. They of course go all in with the one they find, but if they see they need to pivot and change and do something else, they can do it.
Do you have any trait of a person that helps you spot that? Is there any attribute that you can find a correlation with these?
I think it's when someone is very honest and doesn't paint a pretty picture, right? Entrepreneurship is hard, and so is solving great problems. Yeah. So people that actually are honest and own the fact that they don't have all the answers and that many of the things they are trying to solve don't have an answer. I think that is a trait where you can easily see, okay, this person really knows what they're doing, because I think it's very common that the more you think you know everything, the less you probably know. And the more you know, the more you realize you don't know anything at all.
Absolutely.
Right? So, and yeah.
Absolutely. Joan, you are the director of global events at Norrsken, and you are the organizer of the Impact Week in Barcelona. What's something you cannot get wrong at a conference?
We do Impact Week in Barcelona, we do Africa Week in Kigali, and I think for both events and for all events, getting great speakers is key. But the one thing, and of course making sure that the place is nice and that the environment works to your advantage. But the one thing you can't miss is the curation of people that attend. And we take that super seriously. So at any Norrsken event, you can't buy your way in. You need to apply first. And then we probably spend more time than we should in reviewing those applications. And because we really want to make sure that, and it's not that it's only the most senior people or the richest people or the hot deals, the hot entrepreneurs at all. We want to make sure that it's people that are forming a group where great conversation can happen.
And how does an event like that, so creating a conference or building a conference that it's a physical space for people to relate, to build relationships. How does that impact your branding?
For us, I think as I was saying before, right, we want to lend our PR exposure to the ecosystem to elevate it. And what we're trying to do is not having Impact Week or the events we do or Africa Week or any event we do as a way for us to share what we want to share, but rather to build a platform where everyone in the ecosystem, other VCs, entrepreneurs, other enablers, say research institutes, for instance, can come and discuss what they really want. And of course, this is going to impact us positively, and we want to keep reinvesting that spotlight into doing more of this and making the right people famous, right? So what you want to do is make sure that those who are solving real problems get the spotlight, and that's what we.
So you really act as a connector, and that already brings a lot of value to. Call it the brand, call it the company,
100%.
Call it whatever.
100%, exactly. So previously Impact Week was very one direction, where we brought all of the speakers and we created a message that we wanted to share. I think right now we are at a point where we want to make sure that the message that is shared is actually what the ecosystem wants to discuss. This is very tricky, because then you open the door to everyone talking about their book, right, as we say, and it does take some curation. But you find that when you invite people to it and people feel ownership of the success of the event, people move away from self-promotion, and people actually bring great content and great sessions with speakers that maybe we couldn't have ever reached. But they feel that they own that session, and it's part of what they can get out of it. So we're lucky that most co-hosts engage amazing speakers and amazing sessions.
Do you have any recommendation as to when is the right timing for a company to organize an event or a conference or a get-together like that? Maybe obviously like not the dimensions of Impact Week, but like when does it add value to a company that it's being built?
Good question. So I think it's tricky to know whether it makes sense or not. We actually evaluate it very on a yearly basis, whether it makes sense for us to do Impact Week or not. We know that doing physical events is not the most sustainable, right? People have to fly in. Mm-hmm. We try and encourage people to come by train or by other means, but still a lot of people fly in, and then we have to think about whether it makes sense or not. For other companies, I think, is it actually serving a purpose or not? So are you doing it for brand building, or are you doing it because you want to get something out of it? And then brand building, as we were saying, is normally a result, but never the objective. So it's a secondary outcome. If you want to do an event because you realize that you're in a space where there's a need for a platform for people to discuss things, then by all means, go do it. You're in the energy space, and you realize that from all of the players in your niche, there isn't a place for everyone to meet, then go do it. Because making money out of events is hard, and that's rarely the goal. And it is important that what you invest in it, other than money and your time, is worth it.
Yeah, good answer.
I mean, I don't know if it's a good answer, but I would say think about what you want to get out of it, and whether everyone else will get out of what everyone else will get out of it. Right? So you're not doing it for yourself; you're doing it for everyone else. You're just the party organizers. It's like doing a party at your place, right? So are you doing it because you want to do it, or because you think everyone is going to have a great time?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, about the price tickets, how do you guys do it, and what's your recommendation if you were to start from day one?
So we weren't charging tickets before, and that's partly because Norrsken was playing the active part in promoting this type of initiatives in the ecosystem. And then we realized it was important that we do, not in order to make money, because as I was saying, this is rarely going to be the case. And in our case, we're still by far the biggest contributor to Impact Week, but mostly because it signifies value, right? So it helps us keep the pulse and make sure the hand on the pulse, and make sure that we know, is the ecosystem valuing what we're doing or not? If they are willing to pay, if everyone is willing to pay, then of course. You have the answer. Yes, you have the answer. Yes, people want to be here. If they don't, then you shouldn't be doing it at all, right? So absolutely. By us paying all of, or by anyone subsidizing all of an event, you sometimes don't get clarity on whether people really want to be there or not, or they just are there because it's free and it's it's the it's a nice to have. Exactly. Is it a nice to have, or is it somewhere that people really value? And of course, ticketing prices are not even the most expensive part about attending an event, right? So you have to book a hotel, you have to travel, you have to buy your food wherever you are. And most importantly, you have to spend your time there. So if you really want to do that, normally the ticket is really a part of it. And the way we do it is we didn't want to have sponsors for the event or a big chunk of corporate players. We feel that normally that ends up being is an event that is a Frankenstein of different interests and different incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that the end result isn't as valuable to everyone that is attending, right? Because someone is giving you money because they would love for you to organize, say, a speed dating, which you would never have organized anyway. And they are great. Don't get me wrong. They work great in many events, but it's something that you weren't planning on doing. And then you start doing stuff that you weren't planning on. And this way, Impact Week is an event funded by the ecosystem. So it's what the ecosystem wants it to be.
Hi, can I ask you a quick favor? Every week, we dive into the stories of founders that do more than just make money. Our mission is to prove that a career in impact can be both purposeful and financially sustainable. If you believe in creating meaningful work, share today's episode with one friend who's ready to make a difference. It would mean a great deal to me. Your support is what keeps this show alive and growing. Thank you. What's one startup myth you would wish every founder would stop believing?
I think it's become very clear that getting VC money isn't the goal, and it's not a trademark of success. So VC money can be very useful if what you're trying to build requires it. But if that is the end goal, two things may happen. One is that you don't get it, or you get it, and that's not in the interest of the growth of your company. And the other one is that maybe you don't, and you were focusing your efforts into something that you shouldn't. I always say is that being invested by a great VC firm is like getting accepted into a great university. So of course, if you get into Harvard, it means you've done things right? So it is a blue stamp of sorts, but that is not success.
Yeah.
Unless you're willing to put the work and effort into doing those studies, you won't get to the end goal, which is living with a successful career ahead of you. And it's similar with startups, right? You can receive the money, but unless you invest it properly in your own company and you're willing to put the work, then that's not going to happen. It is true, though, that it is easy to see that as a mark of success because it's the things that are more easily identifiable. And it's easy to see it in amongst other companies, right? How much has she shared, she raised, or how much has he raised? It's very easy to compare companies within this, but it's really not relevant. So, yeah, I'd say it's not as relevant to see how much someone has raised rather than how much have they grown, how many people have they impacted.
Yeah. And do you feel that people are moving away from raising capital from VCs? With people, I mean, obviously founders.
I think there was a crunch on VC funding, and that meant that many founders couldn't raise, and that of course killed many companies. But at the same time, it also meant that some people think it's the no bullshit team that say camels instead of unicorns, right? I don't know if they coined this term, but I loved it. It's companies that actually don't need such a big intake of money and make very good use of it. And that's not always the case for all of the companies, as we were saying, right? So you may be taking on a big incumbent and then you need a big influx of money, or you may need a big investment for R&D and you need that big influx of money. But that's not true for all of the companies. And I think it's good that more and more founders are realizing this, so that people that need it actually seek it, and people that don't need it see ways of succeeding without it.
Yeah. I feel that like in the past, because there was a lot of capital to be invested, founders also felt confident by having so much capital in their bank account, because if something went wrong, they would obviously be able to get that capital and fix it. If you have money, everything is easier to fix. So it seems that now, for what you're saying, founders are still confident with having less money, and they are becoming more resilient and more efficient in how they use that capital.
Yes. And at the same time, it is true that having a lot of money in the bank that is not yours, which is the case for VC money, is a huge pressure. Yeah. And you'll need to manage it. And you need to dedicate a lot of time to managing your relationships with your investors, which you should if you need that money. But then it's time that you could spend differently if you don't need the money.
Yeah. But then on the other side, it's not your money. Like if you ask for a bank loan or a recoverable loan or any alternative financial instrument, you always need to pay it back. Not all the instruments, but like a lot of them. Whereas VC money or PE money...
But you have to pay it back. You do have to pay it back one way or another, right? So either you pay it because there's an exit of some sort.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So it is less, it is more risky for the investors that they don't receive a return on their investment.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
But you have the same pressure about returning it.
Yeah.
And it's actually more expensive. So what you're giving away is a part of your company, which is more expensive than what you could get from a bank loan. But then VC money comes in when what you're doing is so risky that you won't get a bank loan, because no banker in their sane mind would touch it for their models that they have built. That's why VC models are built. So as you're saying, right, this is huge risk that VCs are taking, but it's risk that is on you. Yeah. So you do have that pressure.
Absolutely. One of the objectives of this podcast is to inspire talent to make the transition to the impact space. What's one misconception that people have about working in the impact space?
I think it's the fact that there's no money in it. So we've been discussing it, right? There's a reality, which is that if you're solving a problem that is for the benefit of everyone, the solution you're bringing is sustainable and will live over time. So it's more likely than not that that is receiving a big influx of capital. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that this is charity work, and it isn't. So one of the best parts I find about impact entrepreneurship is that, or impact in general, is that you have very bright minds that say, well, we have a massive problem here, and I'm very smart, and I want to dedicate my brains to solving this challenge. So I think there's great talent, there is capital, and it is not charity. I would say that those are my three misconceptions.
I agree.
I mean,
I agree.
And not to disregard charity work, which has a massive purpose, but in terms of impact entrepreneurship, that is not charity, as you're saying, right? You receive an investment from people who expect returns, and that's no different at all.
Yeah. And what do you think the most successful founders 10 years from now will be measured by? Do you think that the success metrics will change and there will be any other metrics added side by side to the financial success metrics? Yes,
100%. I think the financial one won't change. And the reality is that, as we were saying, we live in a capitalist world, and unless you generate returns, there won't be a reason why people invest in you. I hope there will be a way for us to measure returns so that we can we were saying before, right? If you solve a real problem, then it is more likely that you will be sustainable, and then you will generate returns.
Yeah.
So how do we actually measure whether you are solving a real problem or not? We now live I'm talking from the climate side now, but we live in an extractive economy. So if you don't measure the sustainability of what you're extracting, or how you're extracting it, or whether you are regenerating it ideally, then that really doesn't paint a picture of the whole equation of your returns, because it may be that you're generating great returns right now, but 5 years from now, this dies because there's no more of that in the planet. So I think founders will be measured against how they are getting their returns, 100%.
Question. Do you see a world where impact can be linked to equity?
Meaning? Sorry, I don't know, just to know that I understand the...
Yeah, it just came to mind, like, whether if you think that one of the success metrics for founders will obviously be the impact that they achieve, so measuring that impact, but like from your point of view, if there can be a link between achieving that impact or not achieving it to their piece of the pie of their company, for example.
I don't know how to measure it, but I think it's most likely than not going to be intrinsic in the capital returns. But yeah, what you're saying would be ideal in a world where nature is an asset class of its own, and how we treat it is of how we get returns. But I think it is more likely than not that this will be something that we stop seeing, and it becomes by design something that is already within how we look at returns.
But for example, say that you are a founder and you've raised, 10 million, and you have a percentage of the company, and say that within that term sheet you need to achieve X impact, but you don't reach that impact. Do you see a world where not reaching that impact can mean that, your equity is decreased, or the opposite? You overachieve on that impact and you get a certain premium?
Yeah, why not? Especially because, of course, as a VC investor and then as an LP in a fund, what you want is to maximize your returns. But then, as we were saying, if you really see that to maximize your returns, you need to make sure that that company is impactful. You will try to make sure that you measure it and that they are held accountable to it. So, yeah, why not?
So maybe.
Yeah, right now, most impact VCs have the metrics that they are measuring, and they chase founders for them. And if they are not achieving them, they will push hard, no doubt. So this is already happening. Whether this translates into decreasing the equity, I don't know how this would translate in a term sheet, but there can be conditions, no doubt. Yes.
Nice. We're getting to the end of the interview. I have one last question, which is, what's one business you'd start tomorrow if you had to pick something different from what you are doing today?
If I were to pick something very, very different, I would open a very small boutique hotel with very good wine, very good cheese, and good kitchen.
Wow.
I try to run it and be in nature more often than I am. I think around we're here in Barcelona. I think around Barcelona there's so many places where you could do it that doesn't really matter that much.
What's the role you would like to have in the hotel?
Good question. I mean, I'd love to be the one that comes in and cooks every once in a while, but the reality is that more often than, and this is of course daydreaming, right? But there's so much to do in building a hotel that I don't really know. I really don't know the industry at all. But yeah,
it's a nice dream.
Exactly. I wouldn't say it's even a dream. But if I were born to do something very different, that would be it.
Yeah.
Yes. No doubt.
Super, Joan. Thank you so much for having come all the way to the studio. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge, both about the impact space, but also about how to build or why to build a conference and an event that can add value. So thank you so much, and I hope that our audience find it as insightful as I have.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I already told you I had massive imposter syndrome coming here with the great people you've brought, but I really hope with what we've discussed, we can at least get into some detail from it, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.